So let's talk about shadow work. That mysterious thing everyone talks about in therapy circles and mysterious spiritual spaces. Oh, you haven't done shadow work yet? In the same tone that they ask, you don't meditate? Or you still eat sugar? For the longest time I wondered what this shadow work is all about. I never understood it, what it actually meant. And honestly, it sounded intense, like something you would do after a heartbreak, an identity crisis, or at least an intense spiritual awakening. I did not begin my journey after a spiritual intense retreat or from a feeling of I want to better myself. I began my journey from this constant emotional exhaustion, a modus operandi of constant conflict between what I wanted to do and what I always ended up doing. Repetitive self-destructive patterns that I couldn't break. And so began my journey of delving deep into myself, my shadow self, and inner healings. This video is a culmination of all the work and research that I had to do so you don't have to, at least the research part. What your shadow really is. So here's the plot twist. Your shadow is not some evil, dark villain living inside you. Your shadow is actually the part of you that said, okay, this is hard, let's survive it. It learned, stay quiet to stay safe. Smile to avoid conflict. Don't feel too much, don't need too much. Very practical, very efficient. Emotionally exhausting. Now, how does your shadow show up in your daily life? And the funny part, people actually think shadow work happens only in meditation. It doesn't. Your shadow is extremely active in your WhatsApp groups, in the most triggering family dinners, in your toxic pattern of romantic relationships, and in arguments in your head at 2 a.m. where you actually end up saying things that you wanted to say in the argument. It shows up when you say it's fine when it's actually not. When you feel guilty for resting. You over-explain yourself like you're in some courtroom drama. You get triggered by one small comment. You attract the same pattern in a different face and say, why does this always happen to me? Because same nervous system, different person. Shadow work and men. Now, shadow wounds don't disappear just because someone is a man. They just get trained differently. For most women, the shadow learned be nice, be small, and be adjusting. For most men, the shadow learned don't feel weak, don't cry, don't feel emotions, and don't show weakness. So it shows up as emotional shutdown, anger instead of fear, silence instead of vulnerability, control instead of softness. Same pain, different costume. How this culminates in a relationship dance. And this is how relationships get messy. One person says, tell me. The other says, I need space. One chases, the other disappears. Both are terrified. Both call it personality, but actually it's two unhealed nervous systems trying not to drown. Why shadow work is needed? For a long time, I wondered why is shadow work so important? I'm functioning, I'm managing, I'm surviving. But inside, there's emotional fatigue, quiet anxiety, invisible pressure, heaviness with no clear reason why. So shadow work becomes necessary, not because you're broken, but because you're exhausted from surviving in patterns that are no longer needed. Biggest myth about shadow work? Shadow work is not sitting in darkness, crying dramatically, blaming your parents forever, or emotionally self-destructing in the name of healing. Real shadow work is noticing without attacking, feeling without drowning, and responding differently than your past thought patterns taught you to. It's not loud, it's actually very quiet. The truth about darkness. Now, let me say something honest. Shadow work is not all roses and soft light. Sometimes it brings the inner darkness to surface. And by darkness, I don't mean evil. I mean the emotions you were taught to hide. Anger you were never allowed to express. Jealousy you judged yourself for. Grief you didn't have time to process. Fear you disguised as strength. When you begin shadow work, these feelings may rise before they release. Not because you're getting worse, but because they finally feel safe enough to be seen. This is not breakdown. This is unfreezing. Now, how do you actually begin shadow work? Which a lot of people and videos don't explain clearly. So I'm going to talk about certain practical steps that you can follow in your everyday life to begin shadow work in a safe and the most elemental way. The first one, start with the trigger checking. The fastest doorway into your shadow is not meditation. It's getting triggered by other humans. When something hurts you, irritates you, triggers you, or activates you, you need to ask, what inside me feels unsafe right now? Not who is wrong or who needs to change. Just what part of me is activated. That alone is shadow work. The second method, write or journal without trying to sound healed. For 5 minutes a day, write without correcting yourself. I feel jealous. I feel angry. I feel needy. I feel scared. I feel tired of being strong. No spiritual bypassing, no pretending to be so evolved. Just honesty without punishment. The next step is noticing patterns, not flaws. Shadow work is not about attacking your personality. It's about noticing patterns. Overgiving, avoiding conflicts, controlling, people pleasing, emotionally shutting down. Instead of asking what's wrong with me, ask, when did this strategy first become useful? Your shadow formed for survival. It's softened through understanding, not shame. Next practice, which is very, very useful for any kind of inner deep healing. Feel without fixing. One of the deepest shadow practices is feeling without fixing. Sadness without productivity. Anger without destruction. Fear without control. You don't need to change the emotion. You just need to stay present with it while it passes. That rewires your nervous system. The last practical exercise that you need to do is your shadow work in daily life. You don't need incense or mantras or meditation to do shadow work. You do it when you say no without justification. You stop over-explaining. You rest without guilt. You stop chasing unavailable people. You let others be upset without fixing them. This is integration, not performance. Now, what to expect when shadow work begins in your life? Shadow work will not make you nicer, but it will make you truer. You will pause before reacting. You detach faster. You don't spiral as long. You feel more at home within yourself. This is healing. And each part will gently take you deeper into the real inner work without pressure or drama. So be on the lookout for the other parts of this series. Your nervous system already knows it's time. Until then, be gentle, take care. Soil, soul, spice and magic.